The Queensland opposition leader, David Crisafulli, sorry about that. No, that's an in-joke. You shouldn't do that, should you? But I just forgot where I was for the moment. Anyway, he joins me. He is the son, this is a great story, of sugarcane farmers from North Queensland. He successfully ran in 2004 for the Townsville City Council, and he served as a local councillor and deputy mayor before running for the Queensland Parliament, and then was a minister in the Newman government. He is the state member for Broadwater on the Gold Coast, and he too has written in this a magnificent chapter, which is totally different. Australia Tomorrow, as I keep telling you, available online, 38 essays, AUS Tomorrow, oztomorrow.com. It is an interesting chapter titled The Side of Opportunity, about a man aged 40 in 1960, Frank. He left his homeland in Sicily, came here without knowing a word of English. He headed to North Queensland, where the government was expanding the sugar industry. As David Crisafulli writes of his grandfather, words were not his strong point, but hard work was, and he found success with each swing of a cane knife, forging a future for his family. Isn't that fabulous? Each swing of a cane knife, forging a future for his family. As his grandson, the Queensland leader of the opposition, writes, Frank was my grandfather, a man short in stature, but big on ticker. Marvellous. David Crisafulli, welcome to the program. What would your grandfather think that his grandson was only one election away from becoming Premier of Queensland?
G'day, Alan. I'm sure he'd be a little bit proud, but more than that, as somebody who's forged his entire life on the land, I hope he'd be optimistic, because it's been a long time in Queensland since we've had a government that values farmers and not demonises them. And if I can do anything for people on the land, is to give them land tenure security, the ability to build dams again, to be able to walk proud in the streets and know that Queenslanders look up to them and realise that they are the people who feed us and clothe us and create opportunities for us. And I'm over this demonisation of farmers and painting them as environmental vandals. It's just nonsense.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. You said you learnt from Frank, your grandfather, that government should facilitate an environment where any person, regardless of their situation, has an opportunity to release his or her dreams. Are we in Australia as good at that today as we should be, or is power often used to crush people rather than lift them up?
We're not as good as we should be, and we're not as good as we were. And we've fallen into the trap that a lot of nations have with a lot of the PC nonsense. But we've also fallen into the trap that people are judged based on either their status or the dollars in their pocket. And I've seen it with this border crisis, where the government will always make a rule to get a footballing wife or a celebrity in, but an everyday Queenslander can't come back home. And that's frustrated me. And it's only been when we've mounted the case and whacked them hard and put the media spotlight that they've changed. Shouldn't be like that. Everyone should be equal in the eyes of the law, and it shouldn't be one rule for one and one rule for another. And I think Australia as a nation is lesser for that attitude.
Outstanding, outstanding. You say there is a mistaken view that managing an economy is all about money. But your words, and I quote, shouting about spending is the easy part. You talk about, quote, the ongoing crisis in Queensland health. Ambulance ramping, that's queued up, has seen people wait over 10 hours to get into hospital after suffering serious medical episodes. Now, you've been conducting town hall health crisis meetings right across Queensland. What have you learnt?
I've spoken to people who've had loved ones die in their arms waiting for an ambo to arrive. I've spoken to people who will never ever have a child again because of a surgery done allegedly by somebody who wasn't qualified to be doing it. And I've discovered a system where the government is losing control of it, and they're more issued and worry about how things look than what they are, and sweeping things under the carpet. And that has to change. And I look at all the metrics and I look at everything that's happening. Ambulance ramping, you mentioned, but surgery waiting times, and the government's just constantly blaming coronavirus. Well, that's just a nonsensical argument. You've got to get back to putting doctors and nurses in charge. You've got to share your data in real time. We've put those solutions forward. It's one thing to say what's wrong, and I'm happy to do that every day of the week, but I will always give a solution when I'm giving a whack as well. And we've put those solutions on the table, and if the government doesn't hurry up and do it, I fear that more honest Queenslanders are going to die. They're going to lose their life because of a system that's in crisis.
How impressive is this bloke? Just coming back to your farmers. As you know, David, a whole heap of farmers, well, not every farmer owns a harvester because there's a new system now. There are contract harvesters and they go across the country doing their work. Now, there are contract harvesters current in Queensland. They can't cross the border into New South Wales. They've got contracts with farmers down there they've had for years and years and years. So those farmers' crops will come to nothing and the contract harvester can't get across the border. Does this make sense to anyone?
No, it's crazy. And there's one thing about keeping people safe, but you've also got to be fair income and look for ways to do things that are common sense. And I caught up with somebody the other day when I was in Stanthorpe who's got properties on either side of the border. They have lost hundreds of thousands because of this and aren't planting crops at the moment for next year because of their fear of not getting labour and being caught up in this absurdity. And I've seen it from the bush to the city. There's a situation at the moment where we are speaking to people who are homeless, state refugees, for want of a better term, in northern New South Wales, Alan. They are less than an hour away from their home on the Gold Coast. They could hop in their car, drive home and quarantine safely. Instead, what the government says is, get to Sydney, jump on a plane with a few hundred other people, fly back to Brisbane, then somehow get to your home on the coast and then get a truckie to bring your car over the border to your house. Now, that's not keeping people safe. That's being belligerent and pig-headed, and that's putting politics ahead of people. And I've seen it in the bush with farmers and wanting to be able to take their gear from one side of a border to another. And I've seen it in the city where people are homeless, going hungry, relying on couch surfing. And I know that there's a better way. And you can still be safe and you can still show a bit of compassion. And all of this has been a political game for some of these leaders. And I think that nonsense is coming to an end.
Good on you. Look, very outstanding. Just one quick one before you go. December 17, the government says, oh, we'll open on December 17. Shouldn't the government be telling us now, the Queensland government, if December 17 ever comes, what will be the restrictions on December 17 so that people know how they can live? Shouldn't that happen?
Yeah, of course it should. And I also want to know that business is going to have their rights and responsibilities protected. I don't want to see small and family business and the young kids they often employ, I don't want to see them be COVID cops and have to say to people this, that and these are the rules. I don't want to see the government constantly make decisions and dump it all back on the arms of small and family business owners and their staff. And I've seen that the whole way through this. And I've consistently said if decisions are taken for the greater good, you can't shove it all back on the feet of one group of people. And those people are people who put their money on the line every day. They are the small and family business owners and their staff of this country. And I will defend them every day of the week.
Good on you. David Crisafulli, I'm a hard marker. Very, very impressive performance. Good luck and congratulations on what you're doing. You will get there. Frank, your granddad, would be very proud of you. I'll send him a copy of the interview. Okay, that's David Crisafulli, an outstanding leader of the opposition in Queensland.